I like big books, and I cannot lie. The summer is fading. It is after Labor Day, and I have finished with the big books of summer. Hello, welcome to my channel, Another Bibliophile Reads. My name is Greg, and I am doing my wrap-up for the Big Books of Summer. Big Books of Summer is an annual event created and hosted by Sue Jackson. Sue Jackson encourages people to read big books over the summer, and her definition of a big book is 400 pages or more. It can be print, digital, or audio versions. All formats are good. And I'm splitting up my wrap-up into the different formats. I will start with audio, go to digital, and finish with print. The first book I finished was Eyes of the Void by Adrian Tchaikovsky, 606 pages long. It is the second book in the Final Architects series, and it is a rather good and entertaining space opera of a ragtag team of people on a scavenger spaceship that have to defend themselves and the rest of humanity against planet-destroying aliens. This is not a book where you want to start. The book you want to start with is Shards of the Earth. That is the first book in the trilogy. I have the third book lined up on my iPhone to listen to at the end of September, maybe the beginning of October. A really fun series of space opera. Not the best science fiction, but it's really entertaining. King, A Life by Jonathan Eig, 841 pages long. This is the biography of Martin Luther King. I read it as a judge for the BookTube prize. This prize is still ongoing until the end of this month, so I am just going to say that this is a book that I have read. The Hunter by Tana French, 474 pages. This is a sequel to The Searcher. In The Searcher, a Chicago cop retired to a small town in Ireland and got involved in a strange mystery. And this book follows directly upon that one. It is probably best to read The Searcher first, but you might be able to get away with reading just The Hunter. And in this story, there is a scam going on. There is the father of a young girl who's sort of been taken under the wing by the main character. And this father has said there's gold in the hills of Ireland. It is a scam. The narrator of the book knows it's a scam, and bad things are going to happen. People are going to get killed. I really like Tana French. She is one of the authors where I have read all of her known novels. I can recommend this book, but do read The Searcher first, I think is best. Stranger in a Strange Land by Robert A. Heinlein, 610 pages long. This is one of those classic science fiction novels that if you read science fiction, you really have to read this one of these days. This is a reread for me. I know I read it in the 80s. I reread it in the 90s, and I've gotten around to my third reread. And it is just a good story of a human who was raised on Mars by Martians. Martians are not like humans, and he has a totally different world view and philosophy. But he is brought to Earth. And in this story, Robert A. Heinlein, who started writing it in the 40s, I believe, took about 10 years to finally get it published because he wanted to describe what he thought would be a good way for humanity to go, which includes free love and no religion. It is a great Valley of the Dolls by Jacqueline Susann, 500 pages. This was one of those scandalous novels of the 60s, describing the rich lifestyles of women who rise up from Broadway to Hollywood and get addicted to pills. It was really rather entertaining. She does have a style of writing that's not going to be everyone's cup of tea in the 2020s, but I really liked it. Eve by Cat Bohannon, 624 pages. Again, this is a work of nonfiction that I read as a judge for the BookTube prize. So here I am only going to state again that I have read this book. Moving on to digital books. Little Big Man by Thomas Berger, 482 pages. This was published in the 60s, and this is the narration of the last survivor of the Battle of Little Bighorn. The narrator claims to be about 110 years old, and he is a fabulous and notorious liar. Maybe. Could he be telling the truth? I don't think so, but maybe. It is a wonderful example of the unreliable narrator, and it is a good mix of the Western and literature, because you do get to see a lot of the Old West in this book, and I really liked it. I think more people should be familiar with the works of Thomas Berger. Devil's Creek by Todd Keisling, 533 pages. This is a contemporary horror novel set in a small town in Kentucky where there was a religious cult that was going to sacrifice some children to their devil god. The children got saved, sort of, but the high priest of the devil god may not be dead. And when these children return to the town as adults, they are going to have to face the issues that they had with their priest and their devil god. I was kind of disappointed in this book. I thought it was not enough atmosphere and too much focus on action. I like my horror novels creepy. I don't like them fast-paced. So while it was not a bad novel, it's certainly not one of my favorites. Assassin of Gore by John Norman, 407 pages. This is the fifth novel in his notorious Gore series. This series started off as a relatively normal Sword and Planet science fiction adventure series, where an Earthman is brought to an alien planet that has basically humans on it. It unfortunately sort of became a series of rather notorious sexual politics, where women on this planet like to be slave girls. There is a little bit of that sexual politics in this novel. It is just starting to ramp it up in this book. His earlier books had a little bit less, and his future books had a whole lot more. And the future books really become so just imbued with this odious sexual politics that they become unreadable. But Assassin of Gore was really, for the most part, just an entertaining adventure story. CriminOlly presents Garbology, edited by Troy Tradup, 464 pages. This is a book of trashy short stories. There are a lot of authors in this book who I know because I talked to them on BookTube. I've met one in person. And while there are no standout, fabulous A+ short stories in this book, Most of them are decent. You've got a couple A minus, some B pluses, and a bunch of C stories, but I like the premise of this, and I am not disappointed at all that I read this book. I think people who like these kind of short stories that are just on the trashy side should really pick it up. The Quiet Game by Greg Iles, 436 pages long. This is the first in his Pen Cage series. It is the story of a prosecutor turned novelist who returns to his hometown only to learn about an old racially motivated murder in the 60s. Well, he's always known about this murder, but it's bubbling up again, and people do not want him investigating this old case because there are people with things to hide. I read this because it is the first in the series, and I really wanted to read his Natchez Burning trilogy, and I thought it would be a good introduction. I didn't want to jump into the series in the middle. I'm not sorry I read this book. It has a lot of strong points. It is essentially a legal thriller, and yes, it does end with a magnificent court case at the end. I can recommend it. Now on to the print books. There is only one. James Joyce's Ulysses, 650 pages. This is considered one of the greatest novels of the 20th century. I kind of agree. It is a great novel. James Joyce had a depth and knowledge and writing skill that has not been surpassed by many people. But as a novel, reading it just for story, which is how I did it, it's really not all that good. This is a book that Joyce intended people to study and read intently and think about. I was just trying to read it as a story, and it kind of failed there. But this is another book that most people should pick up and try for themselves. If you get past chapter 3, you can make it through the rest of the book. Give it a try. I also had a DNF this summer, and that was Moondance by SP Somtow. It was 710 pages long. I got about 120 pages in. It is the story of werewolves in the Old West, and I was just not digging it. And when I don't dig a book, I DNF it. I had one more book in my announcement video that I did not get to, and that was The Rifles by William T. Vollmann, 406 pages long. This was intended to be a buddy read, but my buddy was in the middle of a house move, and he said, I just don't have time to read this. So I hope we can reschedule that buddy read. This would be a reread for me. William T. Vollmann is one of the most impressive authors living in America now. Not enough people know about him. So I would like to introduce more people to William T. Vollmann, and I hope that buddy read happens in the future. Okay, that's it. That was my big books of summer. I would like to thank Sue Jackson again for organizing it for 2024, and I am looking forward to the summer of 2025, where I again will be reading a whole lot of big books. Thank you for watching, and keep on reading.